Hey, good evening, everybody. I just had a really bad experience taking my truck, which is a 2022 GMC Sierra 1500 four-door. I was having some issues. The engine died off. Taking the kids to school, so naturally, I take my truck to the dealership where I purchased an extended warranty. After my tow truck, after my truck got towed, shout outs to my sister Kayla for hooking it up there. After it got towed to the dealership, that was a Friday. They said, yeah, we can't look at it. It's a weekend, short staff, this and that. They look at my truck, and then they take the wheel well off, leave it off. It's in the back of the truck right now, but they go in there and they start doing their job. They start inspecting it. They asked me like, oh, what do you think it is? So I told them, I was like, well, I don't know. I need you guys to diagnose it and then look at it. I told them I think it's the fuel pump, because the engine turns off and then it turns off. There might be some initial fuel pressure. The fuel pump can't keep the pressure up to meet the demand of the engine. So I suspect that's what it is. So then they go in, they look at it. The service advisor at Chavez Jessup off of Varner in Indio calls me up and says, well, we opened up the engine and we did a pressure test and we did a leak test, and we see that you need to change your spark plugs. So I said, cool, the truck has 90,000 miles. I've never changed the spark plugs. I was like, I agree to that. I was like, but can you check to see if it's the fuel pressure or the fuel pump? Because that's what I suspect it is. So then he goes on and states, line number one, well, we can't check the fuel pressure until we have a good running engine. At that time, I didn't know if that was true or not. After talking to the service department manager, he said, well, some trucks, he's like, do you know if the truck has a high pressure fuel system? And I was like, you know what? I don't know if the truck has a high pressure fuel system. And I go, but can't you connect the tool to the fuel rail and, try to start the engine, and then you can get a fuel pressure reading? He said, no, we need a good running engine in order to test the fuel pump and the fuel pressure. Then they call me back with a quote of $1,300 to replace the spark plug wires. Those wires right there in between the exhaust manifold, that black one with the gray there. There's 8 of them, 4 on one side, 4 on the other, and the spark plug, which is the plug that's connected to those wires. It was this is the amount of the parts, amount for the amount for the labor. Which, if you guys don't know, at that specific dealership, Chavez Jessup, it's stated, it's not hidden or anything. It's $220 an hour, $220 an hour for labor. I worked in the auto parts industry for a long time. It is intensive. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of technical stuff. But $220 nonetheless an hour. So then I was like, you know what? I don't feel that that's right. I don't feel that that's, a fair deal. North of $1,300, it includes a diagnostic fee and this and that. And we still wouldn't get to the core of what I believed was a fuel pressure problem, because according to them, they needed to have a good running engine to check the fuel pressure, to check the fuel pump. So I feel something's off. We have a really bad conversation with the service advisor. He says some things, some red flags, that, he comes from the auto stereo business, and he's worked on Bentleys, which meant nothing, given the current situation, which was an engine problem and a fuel pressure problem, which I thought it was. And then he said that he's sorry. After I corrected him on a few things, he said, well, I'm sorry, but we have to talk to people, or I have to talk to people rather. I have to talk to people like if I'm talking to an old lady, which is a huge red flag. If you take your car to an auto dealership, you should not expect to be treated like a little old lady who knows nothing about cars. All right, that's a stereotype that, one, you shouldn't make, and two, you shouldn't say that if you think that. So zero awareness there. And so then I declined the service. I call a couple friends, and I get a feeling something's off. So then I get a tow truck to pull my truck out of the dealership back home, and tried to get my truck to a repair shop. I couldn't make that happen, even though he was well recommended by my friend Michael. And so then I go to my mobile mechanic, and I was like, hey, can you just give me a second opinion? I just need you to look at this and see what you think, while I figure out where my truck is going to get fixed. He was able to come the next day. Shout out to Alex. He was recommended by a good long friend of mine, Roger Escabel from AutoZone in North Indio. And he came, he looked at it. I took the morning off of work, and about 30 to 45 minutes into it, he says, honestly, I just think you need a tune-up. He goes, the spark plugs are pretty bad. He goes, they were barely on. When another alarming thing, when I told the service advisor that I would tow my vehicle out of the dealership, he said the spark plugs were hand tightened, and that it was good enough to turn on, so that the tow truck can do its job and tow my vehicle back to work, or back to my house, I should say. And he checked the spark plugs, and they were barely on. Then I told him, I was like, hey, do you need to have the tune-up to check the fuel pump? He said, no. He goes, that's done by a diagnostic tool. He goes, you hook up the OBD2 reader to the bottom of the dash on the driver's side, and you turn the switch on, or you push the start button. The fuel pump pressurizes, and then we can read it, and then we compare that to where it should be. And so he's like, I'll check that right now. So he got his diagnostic tool, and then he checked it, and he's like, it's not your fuel pump. So I was wrong there. My assumption was wrong. And so he moved on, and he was looking at it. He was looking at the engine. He was looking at, he test drove it around, and he said, honestly, he goes, I don't see anything wrong. I don't feel anything wrong. It's just a rough idle. He goes, honestly, I suggest a nice tune-up. Let's change the spark plugs. Let's change the wires. Let's change the oil. Let's change the filter. Sometimes things get stuck in the air filter. He's like, I suggest a throttle body cleaning. He goes, I'll do all of that stuff. He goes, and I told him, I was like, all right, when can you do that? He said, I'll do it today. And he looked up the parts. He gave me a quote right there and then, like within 10 minutes. And it came out to about $560. Labor, everything. Rotated the tires, everything. So I left to go do my thing, to go pick up the kids at work. I was doing some errands. Came back. He texted me. He's like, hey man, your truck's ready. And I was surprised. I was like, wait a minute. Like, I thought this was going to be like the beginning of a long thing. And it wasn't. He said he did everything he said he was going to do, and turned the truck on. Truck runs fine. It's a little rough, but he said, we cleared a lot of things, and it needs to relearn everything and needs to readjust into, its settings, and $560 versus what was going to cost me north of $1,300, because the dealership was going to do that, was going to replace all the parts that it said it was going to replace, and then it was going to go into the diagnostic, and it was going to do this, and it was going to do that. And this is the part, I had a conversation with the service advisor, or the service advisor manager, and I told him this. I was like, hey, look, this is like, you guys need a course correct. You guys cannot be doing this to the public. It's appalling. It's damn near criminal what they're doing. And I'm making this video to let you guys know, keep an eye out, ask questions, get second opinions, because these dealerships, Chavez Jessup in Indio off of Varner, in my case, I'm not saying in all, but I'm saying in my case, they were going to take advantage of me. They were ready to take advantage of me. Not only that, I live in Coachella. You know, we have neighbors. You know, we live in the desert. We know there's mice, there's rats, there's trash. This truck for over 2 years, going on 3 now. And I've never had any issue with rodents. Now, we've all heard of issues like rodents nesting in the engine, you know, and then, you know, things happen, they chew through wires and this and that. But I've never had that happen in my house. I've never had that happen in any of my cars. Ever. I drop it off at the dealership, right? GMC dealership, prestigious. You got Cadillacs for sale. You got Buicks, you know, synonymous with high quality, you know, luxury. I leave my truck there. Yeah, my truck is a little dirty. You know, I got stuff. I got dirt. I'm in and out of it. I got kids. They're eating chips and candies and all that stuff. Normal stuff. But look at chewings. Look at that. This has never happened before. I use this truck all the time. I would have noticed something like this. This is all recent. It's not old. It's all recent. Look at all those chewings. What does that look like? Look at, what is that? Rat droppings inside my truck. There's rat droppings inside my truck. Rat droppings on the dash. Now, granted, I know my truck isn't the cleanest, right? Look at, you see those little paw prints? I drive this truck every day. I would have noticed that. I use that part all the time. I rest my hand there. You see those little track marks, little critter marks right there? Yeah, that's... I dropped my truck off without a doubt. Without a doubt, they left my truck open. Now, what I take of this, look at little critter marks, little paw prints right there, all over the place right there. Right there. Here's my take. You think going to dealerships, you're getting the best service because you're just getting charged like crazy. It's astronomical, $220 an hour. And then, you know, like in this case, the spark plugs, you know, retail, I don't know where the mechanic bought it. I'm assuming, you know, Napa Auto Parts, you know, AutoZone. Shout out to AutoZone. I used to work there for a long time. $13, let's call it, let's be generous, $15 a pop. You know, the spark plug wires, from what I remember, you know, no more than 80, maybe $100. And, you know, the oil change, maybe another 50, 60 bucks. They were going to charge me north of $1,300 just to get started in diagnosing, I hope I'm saying that right, diagnosing my problem. And then how much was that going to charge me? Then they have the really bad habit or really bad instinct where they left my truck open. They left my truck open. Yeah, there's probably food marks, rats smell that. All up in there. For what? Now, here's what I'm thinking. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days down the road, that rat was going to bite into something. I was going to claim insurance. I was going to claim a warranty. Warranty was going to send out an inspector and look at all these rat droppings, and deny it. Then I would have been stuck with the bill. Then I would have been forced to pay who knows how many thousands of dollars to find the cable that they chewed through, to the sensor that they destroyed. It's appalling, you guys. Be careful when you take your cars to the dealership. I would say do not take your vehicle to the dealership, because stuff like this happens. It is unfortunate. I mean, it's so bad. Like, it's not bad. It's not hard to run a good business. If you have a good business, you have a good business model, you're honest, you're transparent, you do good work, people are going to look for you. But this right here, everything here, leaving my truck open, who knows, at night, just like it is now, rat droppings. Now I'm going to have this car cleaned, sanitized. I'm kind of like looking like, is there anything down there? Now I'm going to have it's they have if you look back here, you have like this fabric wheel well cover, right? They took it off the front. They didn't have the decency to put it back together. I mean, it kind of worked out in my mechanic's favor, because my new mechanic's favor, because he was able to just access the spark plugs. But I get it. Like, I'm gonna go to a steakhouse and have a nice steak and pay a couple $100s for the experience. But like, I'm not gonna go to some rinky-dinky shack and pay steakhouse fees for sirloin steak, and just think that because I paid $1,300 or $400 for a steak dinner, that it's actually gonna be quality. Look at critter marks all over, rat marks all over my truck, when that's never happened before, ever. So it is what it is. Like, if something happens, I'm not stating any lies. I'm not saying anything more than what it is. This is exactly what happened to me. Keep a lookout. I would say avoid Chavez Jessup. I've had bad experiences there, both sales, buying and selling, buying and selling a truck, and now the service department. So, I mean, a dealership is both of those. You go to a dealership to buy a car, you go to a dealership to service your car. Man, they striked out on both of those, and I just want to share that with you guys. So, peace.